Stone Cold Prose. Building better words.
And now, Your Highness, we return to the best of the bad, the meanest, the nastiest, the most vile bad guys and girls ever to grace or disgrace the silver screen. In the first installment, I discuss such luminaries as Eamon Gert from Schindler's List, Sergeant Barnes from Platoon, Antonio Salieri from Amadeus, and everybody's favorite, Darth Vader from Star Wars. Today we will select 10 more fiends you love to hate because, let's face it, everybody loves a good, bad guy. Hi guys, welcome back to Stone Cold Prose, where we build better words, better thoughts, and better men. I'm Miles Watson, novelist and author of numerous award-winning series including Cage Life, Sinner's Cross, and The Chronicles of Magnus. I worked in Hollywood for 12 years, law enforcement for another 10, and now I break it all down and build it back better. So let's get into this. Evil style. We begin with everyone's favorite bastard, Gordon Gekko from Wall Street. Greed is good, greed is right, greed works. The spirit of the 80s. If Antonio Salieri from Amadeus represents the hidden side of Satan, earnest and sincere, then Gekko is his public face. Handsome, charismatic, charming, and always looking to make a deal. Michael Douglas plays this utterly unscrupulous corporate raider with a relish bordering on glee, and it's impossible not to be seduced even though you know the seduction won't end well. Indeed, while Gekko exults in making money, it's not really the money he's after. It's the sheer thrill of making it, and he's so addicted to that rush that he doesn't give a damn who he hurts or what the consequences are. When his protege asks him how much is enough, his answer, with all the bullshit scraped away from it, comes down to greed doesn't lead to satiety, greed leads to greed. The pleasure is therefore in wanting, not in having. Why did he wreck the company? Because it's wreckable, all right? But of all his pleasures, none is sweeter to him than corrupting others into his way of thinking. And isn't that what the devil does best? Next up is an obscure one, perhaps, Sergeant Waters from A Soldier's Story. Sergeant Waters is one of the most psychologically complex bad guys I have ever encountered in cinema. A career black soldier in a still segregated U.S. Army, Waters is tough as nails, a First World War hero who pushes his men hard and punishes mistakes without mercy. Now it sounds like the typical movie NCO, right? Wrong. See, Waters has a serious hate on against a particular type of stereotypical Southern black man he refers to as a Geechee. Geechees, in his mind, drag the black race down by making it impossible for white people to respect them. So as half hobby, half crusade, Waters, who's played by Adolph Caesar, selects the geechiest black men in his units and pushes them towards destruction. Prison, suicide, he doesn't care so long as the Geechee is destroyed. Waters is a nasty piece of work. He's scientifically vicious, yet his grievance is so totally sincere, and the racism he himself is subjected to is so intense that you pity him even as you despise him. Waters is never so terrifying as when he recounts how a soldier in his segregated outfit allowed himself to be publicly humiliated in France in World War I for money by wearing a tail and eating bananas to amuse a white audience. And would you believe, Waters mutters over his drink later in the film, that when we slit his throat, the fool actually had the nerve to ask us what he had done wrong? Next up is Pamela Voorhees from Friday the 13th. Most people think of Friday films as the bloody playground of one Jason Voorhees, he of the hockey mask, machete, and shitty attitude generally. But in the iconic first film, the villain is not Jason, but his batshit crazy mother Pamela, played by Betsy Palmer, an accomplished stage actress who took her role in the movie so she could buy a new car. Palmer's motives may have been mercenary, but her performance as the knife-wielding mommy of Crystal Lake's least popular citizen is unforgettable. Like many crazy cinematic killers, Mrs. Voorhees has a legitimate grudge. Her only son, the deformed Jason, drowned when camp counselors decided to leave him alone so they could get it on in the bushes. That mistake causes a lot of people to pay a grisly price, not least which is Pamela Voorhees herself. The slow reveal of her insanity at the movie's climax, culminating in a scene where she begins speaking in Jason's voice, saying, "Get her, mommy, kill her, don't let her get away," is so unsettling that it frightens me a little bit even now, today, as a grown man. So you can imagine what it did to me when I was 10 watching this movie furtively at night. Next up is Ash from Alien. When it comes to subtly underplaying bad guys, there's not a hell of a lot you can teach Ian Holm. If you ever wonder why I prefer the Brian Cox Dr. Lecter to the Sir Anthony Hopkins Dr. Lecter, Ash from Alien is why. Presumably the mild-mannered science officer on the ore transport ship Nostromo, Ash turns out to be, in the words of Yaphet Kotto's character Parker, a goddamn robot, a synthetic or artificial person, better known as an android. Given secret orders by the evil Weyland-Yutani Corporation to get the alien back to Earth, Ash cleverly sabotages the efforts of his crewmates to defeat the murderous monster and even tries to kill Sigourney Weaver's Ripley, when she tumbles onto his secret. Even when he's basically reduced to a talking head covered in yogurt, Ash is unperturbed and manages to cruelly roast his shipmates by mocking their chances of survival. This character is a low-key masterpiece of villainy, all the more evil because he acts with complete selflessness. We get the strong sense that although as a machine he must obey the company's orders, as a scientist, his admiration for the alien and his desire to protect its life are completely genuine. The fact that he's capable of this awe and wonder over the life of the monster, while at the same time engineering the deaths of his comrades, is genuinely horrible to contemplate. Great work. Next up is the legendary Agent Smith from The Matrix. Speaking of sincere villains, Hugo Weaving's Agent Smith must surely rank as one of the most nakedly evil, yet strangely admirable bad guys in cinematic history. A sentient program developed by The Matrix to defend itself against rebellious, red-pilled humans, remember where that term came from? Smith is initially presented as the walking, talking epitome of the soulless, white-bread government assassin. He even wears sunglasses, one of those Secret Service earpieces, and a 60s-style suit like somebody out of the Blues Brothers' imagination. But as it turns out, Agent Smith does have an identity of his own. He's no more emotionless, read-only killing machine like the Terminator. Oh no. No, he genuinely hates human beings. He hates the way they think. He hates the way they act. He hates the way they smell. He hates them so much he's developed a whole theory about them, which he explains at some length to his arch nemesis Morpheus, while torturing him, of course. Smith, alone among the computer agents, seems to have a soul, or at least an ability to think beyond his programming. He's evolved. And that makes him even more dangerous than his fellows, because in one sense, the purely negative sense, he does understand humanity better than they do. And as Thomas Harris observed in The Silence of the Lambs, it's unsettling to realize someone can understand you without wishing you well. That is Agent Smith. He gets you, and then he gets you. Next up is the legendary Hans Gruber from Die Hard. With his droll manners and his tailor-made suits, the former East German radical-turned-extraordinary thief has a special place in the Great Hall of Villains. This gentleman poses as a terrorist to execute a bold and bloody robbery that he knows will lead to the deaths of dozens and dozens of innocent people, including a pregnant woman. Does he give a fuck? Not even a little one. Although we get a little of Gruber's backstory in the movie, a very little, it's pretty clear he's the sort of disillusioned ex-radical who makes the very worst kind of criminal, the type with zero beliefs at all. Gruber, brilliantly played by the late Alan Rickman, not only doesn't give a shit about collateral damage, he doesn't give two about his own men. Just the money he came to steal. Yet somehow, despite all of this, he manages to convey a moralistic disdain for both his nemesis John McClane and for American culture generally. He'll show us about greed and materialism by being greedier and more materialistic than any of us could be. I can't see this guy on screen without thinking, you've been struck by a smooth criminal. Next up, Freddy Krueger from A Nightmare on Elm Street. Before he was debased into a sort of cartoon character by a string of increasingly moronic sequels, this extra crispy revenant from hell was one of the most terrifying baddies ever to keep you awake in the middle of the night, and he did me when I was in 8th grade. Plagued by the normally cuddly Robert Englund, Fred Krueger was a vicious child murderer, sprung on a technicality, but brought to savage justice by the parents of his victims. who burned him alive. Who can blame him? Years later, however, Freddy returns as a malevolent spirit who invades the dreams of his killer's children, terrorizing them to the point of insanity before slashing them to bloody ribbons with his trademark razor glove. Vicious, cunning, and sadistic, Freddy hit audiences where they felt safest, in their beds and in their dreams, turning them, the beds and dreams, into terrifying nightmares where failure to wake up meant a horrible death. I can honestly say this bastard robbed me of a good many nights' rest when I was in my tweens, and I still find the slice and dice he performs on some of his victims, including Johnny Depp, unsettling today. Though he has very limited screen time, Englund manages to kind of crackle with a mixture of dirty snuff film sadism and a capering evil kind of glee. This is one villain who loves what he does, and he wants you to know it. Next is John Kreese from The Karate Kid. Few movies take less time to establish just what their bad guys are made of than The Karate Kid, the original film. When we first meet John Kreese, he's instructing, i.e. indoctrinating, a class full of impressionable young karate students. We do not teach you to be merciful here. Mercy is for the weak. Here, in the streets, in competition, a man confronts you, he is the enemy, and an enemy deserves no mercy. It's a great intro. Kreese, the founder of Cobra Kai Karate, is the perfect black hat. He's a bully. He's a bigot. He's an egotist. And his attitude rests entirely in his fists. But his bigotry is really his best quality because it's so marvelously hypocritical. He refers to Mr. Miyagi as a slant and a slope, which is really breathtaking when you consider that he's making mock of the same race of people that invented the martial art he's devoted his entire life to and from which he makes his entire living. Bad as he is, he's never badder than when he infamously instructs his star pupil Johnny to sweep the leg when fighting the heroic Daniel. The look of betrayal on actor Billy Zabka's face when he realizes just what sort of man he's chosen to be his idol, mentor, and father figure is as evocative as it is haunting. This is honestly child abuse at its psychological worst, and I'm pleased, is that the right word, to say that he's still at it 40 odd years later on Cobra Kai. Next up, Tommy D from Goodfellas. Aside from Rick Masters from To Live and Die in LA, I can't think of anyone I wanted to see die more than Tommy DeVito, Joe Pesci, in Martin Scorsese's unbeatable gangster epic. Tommy, a mafia associate angling hard to get his button, is one of the worst human beings ever to cross the silver screen. He's pathologically violent, casually sadistic, and so unstable that you have no idea what the hell is going to set him off from one moment to the next. Whether he's attacking a waiter for daring him to pay the bill, casually murdering a bartender for talking back to him, or slaughtering a made man for failing to show him respect he isn't due and hasn't earned, Tommy is a parole board's worst nightmare. He has no conscience, no remorse, no pity, and neither the ability nor willingness to restrain his impulses toward violence. Imagine a wagon full of old dynamite sweating big beads of nitroglycerin as it jounces along a badly rutted country road. That's Tommy. Every time he makes an appearance, you know someone is going to die horribly. Maybe even Tommy himself. But hey, he isn't all bad. After killing the hapless Billy Bats, he apologizes to Henry Hill with the immortal words, "I didn't mean to get blood on your floor." Yeah, Tommy. Next, King Edward I, a.k.a. Edward the Longshanks from Braveheart. The Scots are a notoriously difficult people to subdue. This has been known from the time of the Roman emperors, who subjugated what is now England and Wales, but decided it was in their best interests to simply build a wall up north to keep the goddamn Scottish savages out of the rest of the island. As late as World War II, it was observed that when taken captive by the Germans, the Scots resorted to the sort of behavior that made Hadrian build his wall. Well, in Braveheart, Edward I, Patrick McGoohan, is determined to ensure his dominance over the troublesome country to the north, and he will stop at absolutely nothing to do it. Before we even see his character on the screen, he's already shown his mettle by inviting Scottish leaders to a parley under a flag of truce, and then having the lot of them hanged. In the course of the movie, he murders his son's lover by throwing him out a window, initiates a program to breed the Scots out of their own land by letting his nobles have their way with Scottish women, and once again violates a flag of truce by inviting William Wallace to a meeting and then trying to assassinate him. As if all of that is not enough, he's cheap too. When asked in battle if archers should lay down a barrage before he sends in his Irish conscript soldiers, the king replies, "Arrows cost money. Use up the Irish. The dead cost nothing." My fucking Irish ancestors got a thing to say about that for sure. Fuck off, you Brit. And that brings today's installment of Best of the Bad to a close. But we are not done. Not by a damn sight. Much like Pamela VOORHEES' troubled son Jason, there'll be a part 3, and a part 4, and a part 5, because there's lots of bad in the world. Guys, if you enjoyed today's video, please remember to like, subscribe, comment, hit the notification bell, and check out my books on Amazon. The link is in the description. I drop scripted content every Friday at 3 p.m., shorts almost every day, and unscripted rambles whenever rage moves me to do so. I'll see you next time, and until then, stay cold and bad.